This happened when I was in my second year of university. Back in those days, I was living far away from my hometown and living alone. I didn't have a girlfriend back then, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't have all that many friends. This meant that I had an abundance of free time. I'll show my age by telling you this, but back when I was in university, I got my main source of entertainment from the local video rental store. So I spent most of my time and money watching video rentals. I would watch anything, movies, TV shows, anime. To me it really didn't matter. I just enjoyed the company of my VCR and TV while I was lounging around at home. So one usual boring day, I headed out to the video store for some entertainment. Just outside of the entrance to the video store, they had these baskets of VHS tapes which were always low priced. I guessed that they did that to entice people into their store. I always stopped and took a look at what was on offer, and most of the time I would see the same tapes there, but that day, I guessed that they were having a clear-out sale or something because most of the tapes looked pretty old. All the videos were really cheap as well. In most cases, they were below 100 yen a piece. I thought I might as well have a little rummage through the tapes to see if there was anything worthwhile picking up. I found something that I was interested in. Home Alone. You know the one, right? The booby traps and all that. Back then, that film was still relatively new in Japan. I think my cousin had seen it and recommended it to me. I hadn't seen it yet, so I decided to give it a try. I mean, at that price, I figured I had nothing to lose. I headed home, and as soon as I got back to my dorm, I opened up the tape. Huh? Something didn't seem right. Usually when you open up a tape, you would see something like a sticker in the center of the tape, displaying the name of the film and stuff like the age rating, the runtime, and the name of the director or something. There should have been an official label, but there wasn't one. Instead, there was a plain white sticker with some jagged writing in ballpoint pen scrawled against it. I'll always remember this. It read, October 21, 1993. What the hell is this? I thought. I wondered if someone had swapped out the tape for a different tape, or if it was a prank or something. But then I thought to myself, well, it is a second-hand tape. I guess that the previous owner might have made a note on the tape for whatever reason. I just tried to keep an open mind. I popped my new tape in the VCR and hit play. The video started with a sandstorm of static and white noise. I watched for a couple of seconds while thinking, did I just buy a dud tape? I got annoyed. I was certain I got duped and I bought a rubbish tape. I leaned forward to hit the eject button, and just before I pressed it, the picture on screen changed. Was that the sea? It looked like it. There was a cliff overlooking the sea. The image quality was pretty poor, and what was even worse was the fact that the camera was shaking like mad. I'm guessing that I was watching a handheld camera recording. I kept watching. Then I heard another sound. There was a sound of a man mumbling. What the hell? All I could see on screen was the edge of the cliff. It was like the guy who was recording was pacing around. Then the camera started shaking like crazy. Was the guy running now? Hey, hang on a minute, I heard myself say. The camera flew to the ground, tumbled around and then landed, and then I saw the silhouette of a person race to the edge of the cliff. There was a horrible screaming, shouting sound. And then the tape then went back to static. I sat there completely lost. I was silent. I wasn't sure of what I had just witnessed. I ejected the tape and slowly put it back in the Home Alone case. I suddenly felt the urge to get out of my apartment. I wanted to get away from my TV. I decided to go back to the store. I asked the clerk there what was on that tape and why he was selling it to me, but he was as shocked as I was. I wonder if someone had swapped out the tape while it was outside in the bargain bin. I didn't really understand the contents of what I had seen until my friend told me about it. He said that he thought that it was a recording of someone's final moments. How the hell that got into a Home Alone VHS tape box is something I'll never know. I know that the man who ran towards the cliff didn't distribute that tape, and it makes me wonder if someone was with him, if someone forced or coerced him. It's a terrifying thing to see, and I'll always remember how desperate his voice sounded. It was horrible. Okay, this one's pretty dark. Fair warning. This happened one summer more than 20 years ago. I was in elementary school and I was heading home. My older cousin had come to visit me that summer break, and we were just messing around in my neighborhood. We were heading down the street, and my cousin noticed something. He ran over to a couple of objects lying on the ground in an empty lot of land. I followed him, and I saw what the objects were. There were 3 videotapes there. It looked like someone had thrown them away. My cousin joked and dared me to bring them back to my parents' house so we could watch them. I didn't really want to, but I couldn't resist the dare. I grabbed the tapes and took them home with me. When we got home, my parents were still out at work, so we fired up the TV in the lounge. We popped the tape in and hit play. It started with a woman undressing in an alley. It looked like it was some kind of blue movie. My cousin said with a smirk that he had already seen this video. It made me feel a lot younger than him. The picture quality was pretty bad. I could tell it wasn't a Hollywood movie. I told him that my mum would be home from work soon, so if we wanted to see anything else, we better hurry. With that, he hit fast forward. There wasn't anything much else we could find on the tape, so we tried a different one. I put another one in, and it showed what appeared to be a movie set in the Alps about skiing. Anyway, it seemed super boring, so that tape got immediately rejected, and I put the last tape in. And I think it's safe to say that my life changed in that moment, that I chose to do that. This one was really weird. It was a video of someone harassing another person on the train. The quality was much worse in this video, and it seemed the most real. My cousin yelled out, "Boring," and I hit fast forward because it didn't make much sense to me. I fast forwarded to a point where the image changed, and then hit play again. We were now in a forest, and it appeared as if the person who was recording was following a very young woman. She was walking through this bamboo forest. It was dark. She sometimes stumbled as she walked, and at one point she hit the ground. She seemed to be incredibly unsteady on her feet. Every time she slowed or stopped, you would see an adult's arm come into frame and push her forward. There was no sound to the video. It was just static. The video went on like this for about 10 minutes before I heard my cousin yell out, asking what it was. Before long, the bamboo forest opened up into this kind of clearing. In the center of that clearing was a giant hole. I saw the dirt piled up to the side. The sun was shining brightly. She got to the edge of that pit, and I saw that young woman get violently shoved in. Then jeans came into frame, and dirt began to get shoveled into the pit. The young woman in the pit didn't move. She was just lying on her front, and I watched the dirt cascade onto her back. Her face was turned towards the camera, but it was hard to see, because it was dark in that pit. It looked as if she was staring at the camera. In retrospect, I guess her hands could have been bound. The earth continued to fall on her, to the point where we couldn't see her anymore. I watched the person who was recording kick more dirt in, while his shovel dumped load after load. If we continued watching, then things would be really bad. I felt something terrible inside me, and I knew I had to stop watching. Panic gripped me. I got up and paced over to the VCR. I hit the stop button, but it didn't respond right away. I panicked, and then I hit a bunch of buttons. My cousin came over and tried to help by also pressing multiple buttons. On screen, the cameraman was now pointing his camera towards the sky. My cousin was yelling at me to shut off the video. We tried to pry the tape out, but it got all mangled up in the VCR. When my cousin yanked on it, all the black tape stuff came out. My dad came home that day before my mum did and told us off for messing around with the VCR. He spent a good hour cutting the tape out of the machine. Now I'm older, I really don't know what that was. I don't know how young that woman was. I don't know if it was an art piece or some kind of amateur horror film, but it scared the crap out of me. It looks so unbelievably real, and I think about it all the time. I just hope that I didn't stumble across someone's dark secret recorded on film. In the end, my cousin and I took the 2 remaining tapes and the remnants of that 3rd disgusting tape back to the abandoned lot and left them where we found them. They were gone in a couple of days. This isn't my story, but one I heard from a guy I work with. I've known this guy for years, and he's very far from a liar. He's so straight edge and regimental, it's hard for me to even believe this happened to him. But hey, I love creepy stories, and I felt like this was the right platform to share, the one he told me. Just as a side note, this has gone down in infamy in our company, for better or for worse. He will always be the guy who found the weird VHS tape in his hotel room. Anyways, let's get into this. My company has this really crappy business travel arrangement where they always reserve the shittiest hotels they can find. It's like they have some kind of special skill in finding shit. Now back then, you had these kind of coin-operated machines which would work if you entered coins. There was a bunch of videos, and if you stuck a few coins in, you could watch anything you wanted. There was horror, comedy, blockbusters, and of course there were adult movies in a large variety. So my coworker checked in, and he was taking a look at the variety. There was the standard type of stuff you would see, but in amongst the naughty films and the foreign films was a blank video cassette. He picked it up to take a better look at it, and discovered that it had no label on it. There was no indication of what film it was. He said that was what intrigued him. At the time he thought it was some kind of behind-the-scenes feature. He decided to toss a coin in the slot and check out what was on the tape. The worst he would lose was his 100 yen coin, and he was far too bored to worry about that risk. So he popped the old VHS tape in the old tape player there, and the screen blurred, and then the film began. The first thing he saw on the screen was a festival scene. It looked as if it was summertime, and there was some sort of event happening in a small village or town. There were food and drink vendors. In their pop-up stalls, people dressed nicely were passing through. Everyone seemed to be having a blast. Then the camera zoomed in on one kid's face. My coworker said that he thought the boy must have been no older than 16. When the shot became a first-person shot, and that all that could be seen on screen was the young boy, the image froze. Some completely out of place, inorganic-looking amateur typeface appeared on screen. The white writing beneath the boy's paused image read, "Akifumi was killed later that night." Akifumi was almost certainly that young lad's name. With that, my coworker said that he checked out of that hotel. He didn't care what trouble he would be in at work for doing that. He just knew that he couldn't be anywhere near that tape, and potentially that town where something like that was going on. This all takes place before DVDs, in the age of VHS tapes. When I was in university, there was this mail order delivery system for VHSs. Why did this VHS delivery service exist? Well, it wasn't all that uncommon in Japan back then. Of course we had rental stores too, but this service was preferred by renters who wished their choices of viewing material to remain private. This VHS delivery service specialized in spicy materials, shall we say. A guy would turn up on a motorcycle, and I would often see flyers advertising their service in my mailbox. One day after class, I was feeling particularly spicy myself, so I decided to order a tape. I was really excited, and I remember my heart was pounding as I waited for the delivery to come in. The driver finally arrived at around 10 p.m. I handed over the money, received the goods, drew the curtains, and popped in the VHS. The image quality wasn't great, it was pretty grainy. A black curtain appeared on screen, and just remained there for a while. There was no title sequence or anything like that, it just went straight to the video. A woman was on screen next. She looked like she had the same bob haircut of a famous comedian in Japan. A male comedian. This realization surprised me so much that I let out an audible, "Wow." By the way she looked, I guessed that I was watching a tape from the 80s. And hang on a sec, this looked like it was filmed in her house. I kept watching. Nothing happened for 5 minutes or so. She just sat there staring at the camera, as if she had been paused by some kind of magical remote. I got annoyed. This was not the kind of thing that was going to work for me. I fast-forwarded for a while, and at one point her mouth moved. I wanted to hear what she had to say, so I rewound it and pressed play at that part. "This is me 5 years ago." After she said those words, a horrible, creepy noise blasted out of the speakers. It was like hundreds of human voices, all overlapping, yet what was being said was completely incomprehensible. The image on screen began to distort and twist before disappearing into the static. What the hell is this? Did I get some kind of defective tape? I called up the delivery service to complain. I angrily told the guy at the other end of the line to replace my tape with another one. I expected a bit more dialogue, but the guy just said, "Understood," and hung up. I waited for someone to come and pick up the tape, but no one ever showed up. I was really annoyed that I had been duped out of my money by this company and they didn't even have the decency to correct their error. I tried calling back, but no one picked up. I was so annoyed, but I was also aware that members of the Yakuza, Japan's organized crime network, were known to make money through the sale of such videos. I decided not to call back, just in case. I just accepted the loss. I got a call from a friend of mine about half an hour after I watched the weird tape. I told him about the situation, and he agreed that the tape was definitely not as advertised. He really wanted to watch it. I told him about the content of the video and how I was certain that the video was filmed in someone's apartment, not in a studio. He asked if I made sure that I rewound the tape properly. I told him that it came rewound. I said that I know this because I rewound it again in preparation to give it back to the guy who sold it to me. In the end, I gave the tape to him. He seemed more interested in it than I was. At a later date, I asked him if when he watched it to the end, and he said that he did. I asked him if anything else happened. He said that the scene changed to a sofa. The woman walked back in, naked, and laid down on the sofa and shut her eyes as if she was going to sleep. Nothing else happened. I thought, oh, at least there was something spicy on the tape. But then my friend said it was far from spicy. He said that the woman was crying and it was painful to watch. He said it eventually went back to static and then he turned it off. So he didn't get to the end, but he got further than I did. I asked him what he did with the tape after that, and he said that he left it in the club room at uni. He went back to see if it was still there and it was gone. So the tape's current whereabouts is a mystery. Nowadays we live in the age of DVDs and Blu-rays, so I doubt anyone these days is watching that creepy tape. I often wonder if it still exists somewhere though. Someone might still own it. I have wondered about something else as well. What if the content on the tape differs for each viewer? My friend said that he didn't see what I saw, and I didn't see what he saw. That would be weird. Because of this wild and wacky theory that we have dubbed that tape the Wandering Tape. My friend and I are still good friends, and sometimes that tape comes up in conversation. I really wish we didn't lose it. By the way, there was no sticker on the tape, it was just a black VHS cassette. Sorry, it's not that scary, it's just really mysterious to me. Hey, I know this isn't a VHS story, but it's a tape story, so I'm hoping you'll let me off this time. I like this one, so I thought it would be worth including. It was the second day of New Year. I had been given some money as a New Year's present, and I wanted to get a CD player. I asked my dad to take me to the local electronics store. We looked around the store for a bit and I managed to pick out a good CD player in my price range. Now, I have this habit of whenever I buy something, I always pick the one at the back, and that goes for books, CDs, whatever. I just want to have one that I think people haven't touched so much. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who does this. So anyway, I carefully moved all the other CD players out of my way and I picked up the one at the back and took it to the register. As soon as I got home, I set about unpacking my new CD player. My brother came into my bedroom. He was excited to see my new purchase. We were all blown away by the features. This did happen a while ago, so you know how much technology has changed since the days of CD players. We were pressing all the buttons, extending the aerials, stuff like that. And at the time, it was the item I spent the most money on in my life. I was so proud of it. I was in the second year of high school. So I pressed the button to eject the tape deck. We heard the slow, gentle whir of the mechanics as the tape deck opened, and it wasn't empty. My brother and I were both shocked. There was already a cassette in the deck. We didn't know what to think, so we just removed the tape for the time being. On closer inspection, the tape appeared to be pretty old. By that I mean it wasn't a transparent tape. It was a chunky dark colored tape. The type you might expect to contain old 60s ballads or enka music. The cassette was dark grey. There was a tatty old label on the tape. A name or a title of some kind was poorly scrawled there. The Voice of Kiyohito. I wondered to myself, what the hell does the Voice of Kiyohito mean? I mean, it wasn't entirely an unrecognizable name. It was just slightly dated when you consider the age of the tape. It didn't seem that unrealistic though. Let's hear it, my big bro said. I was a little scared, but encouraged by my brother's confidence. Of course I wanted to know what was on that tape too, so I popped the tape back in the deck, pushed closed, and hit play. After a short static silence, I heard something. A man's voice came through. It wasn't loud, it was quite quiet, but definitely audible. He sounded as if he was muttering something. It was like he was repeating a chant of some kind. I wound the little dial that increased the volume, yet still the man, I am assuming Kiyohito, sounded quiet and faint. I was really creeped out. I didn't want to put my ear close to the speaker, but I couldn't resist the urge to do so. I heard that male voice muttering, and it was really strange. Why the hell is this tape here? His tone never changed. It was continuously monotonous, and at a steady pace. It almost had a kind of rhythm to it, and that was when I figured out what I was listening to, a Buddhist chant. It was as if he was praying to prevent something from happening. Something my ears could barely hear, and my young mind could barely comprehend. Something snapped inside me. Curiosity gave way to fear, and I snapped my finger down on the stop button. I don't mind admitting that I ran to my mum wailing for her help. I don't know what I expected her to do, but I did it anyway. She came running in as mums do, asking, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I played her the tape, and my brother and I sat there wide-eyed as she listened. I asked her, "What's this, Mum?" The only answer we got back was, "I don't know." The CD player, which had been an object of desire, anticipation, and joy, became an object of fear in the matter of a few moments. After that incident, I didn't go anywhere near my new CD player for a couple of days. I was legitimately freaked out by it, but it didn't take long for the fear to fade. And after a couple of days, I ended up using it regularly. I ended up using that thing for several years without any further creepy incidences. One thing I noticed was that I never saw that tape again. I don't know, maybe my mum chucked it away. I thought of asking her about it, but it seemed like something so trivial the more and more the days passed. I asked my mum years later about the incident, but she said she didn't remember it. For a while I thought that I had imagined the incident, but that was until I asked my brother about it, and he said he remembered it. I was kind of shocked by his answer, though. "I remember it, bro, just don't ask me, it was horrible." So that left me with the question of, was there something I didn't understand about the tape? Maybe I couldn't make out the words that Kiyohito was saying. Maybe those words carried weight. Maybe there was some meaning behind them that I was too young to understand. In any case, it was a creepy incident, which I think about quite often. Who put the cassette in the CD player that I bought, and for what reason? Maybe it was a returned item. Who was this Kiyohito, and why did someone have a tape of him begging for something not to happen to him? Has anyone else had any similar experiences?